Welcome to the Unobstructed podcast, the podcast that breaks the division between business and culture. And now, your hosts, Colin, Finkle and Edward Cervantes.
So
All right,
I don't know, where do we start?
Well, I was going to ask you how you're enjoying quarantine.
I'm sick of it. It's done. I wish it was over. I'm like looking for any vaccine news that I can to have somebody able to like shoot me up so I can rejoin society in a meaningful way.
Yeah. I just actually was reading just before you called. New York is going into a modified stage 2 Monday, so they're going to join the Peel guys.
Yeah.
Is up and coming probably as well.
Yeah, Halton, we're lagging behind, but we're gonna get better in phase 2, and we're gonna get these numbers up. These are amateur infection rate numbers. We had a gym in Hamilton have a super spreader event, so like got like 60 people on board. So
nice.
We're putting in the time and effort to get back into this phase 2.
Nice.
Yeah, but things are still open around here, which is kind of nice. Hasn't been too many restrictions, although we're trying to, like, as a family, we're trying to not be part of the problem. So I'll see how long it lasts this time around.
Well, yeah, I mean, you got to do your part in quarantine, but this kind of goes into part where what we're trying to talk about today is really like, what are you going to do, or what can you do until a vaccine comes out? And even then, what is that really going to change for people who are pro and anti-vaxxers? Like, I think I've asked you this before. I don't know if you plan on getting the vaccine yourself.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna get it.
Yeah. I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I'm an anti-vaxxer. I have nothing against it. I don't really. I've never been one to get vaccines for anything. I never got a flu shot. I think other than the standard ones you get when you're coming up in elementary school and in any of the school systems. But I myself have never been vaccinated for anything, so I won't be getting it.
Yeah, I totally understand that, and it's not an easy thing. Like my family's pretty iffy on. I'm like the only one in my immediate circle that's gonna get a flu shot. I'm hoping that doesn't carry over. That mentality doesn't carry over to the COVID vaccines. But I mean, it is concerning. Like to be worried about vaccines in general, especially like the childhood vaccines, is a little over the top. Like the efficacy rates and the rates of people having adverse complications are so minimal. Like 1 in 10,000, 1 in 100,000, and it's like people getting mild fevers, and sometimes in the very rare cases, people getting severe fevers. And there's something going wrong about that, because like the ceiling or the threshold that they have to clear to inject healthy people with there's the cat to inject healthy people with a vaccine, with medicine, is such a high barrier, because you cannot, like, it's like do no harm, right? It's the Hippocratic oath. Like they can't risk doing harm to healthy people, doctors, scientists, people in the medical profession. But that being said, it's like I'm just wondering how much the pressures on the companies we're going to talk about and the governing bodies to get the vaccine around there, how much is it going to affect people's standards of safety and efficacy? Like we already know that the US FDA has reduced the efficacy threshold to like 55% or something around there. So it's like, what other things are they turning a blind eye to or thing in the pressure to get this out, because everybody in the world wants this to be over.
Yeah, but that's just not just the U.S. That's almost every country that's participating in this you know, fight to find the vaccine or the cure. Everyone is bypassing regulations, and everyone is finding the shortcuts. And I mean, like I said before, I wasn't going to get the vaccine. I don't think I've been vaccinated for anything other than what you get vaccinated for when you're a kid. And so this is definitely not helping me or making me feel any more better than it was before in trying to get a vaccine now or get vaccinated once a solution goes out there. But then, I'm reading a lot of articles that there's a huge divide between these two, the right and left of the companies that are participating in this rat race for the vaccine. Some companies are actually taking their time. Some organizations are taking time in their research and their studies and their trials because they're fighting for what they're calling like this kind of shared solution for the world. Whereas some other organizations are trying to, win the rat race so they can be the first ones in the market, protect their intellectual property, and profit like crazy because their chemical compound is going to be proprietarily theirs and they can profit all they want. So I really don't know which side is going to be. Like I guess Bill Gates is on the left side of this whole discussion. I'm reading articles that he's kind of pushing for that shared solution for the world kind of approach, and he's not really looking to trademark this or proprietarily make this chemical compound his or the solution his. He wants it to be available and shared and produced enough to address the world needs. But I don't really know where you sit in this argument because I'm not going to get the vaccine in either case, but I for sure as hell going to feel a lot more at ease about it if one of the people who are fighting to share the solution with the world are probably the ones that come up with the solution first, versus companies like Gilead coming out to try and trademark their solution and have already come out to say that they're trying to win the race and trying to maximize profit. So they come up with a solution first and their vaccine goes global. I probably will not get it then at that point for sure.
Yeah, I don't think anybody can be held to the standard of having to know all of the ins and outs of the industries that are producing these vaccines to make a decision on whether they get it for themselves and their family too. Yeah. Like if Gilead, I think there was a announced pause in the AstraZeneca vaccine trial. And I mean, like, even as a person that wants it to be safe before anything else, I was still kind of like, man, like kind of wish it was kind of a bummer to hear that it was halted on safety concerns. And apparently it was nothing more or less than they would expect on any vaccine trial. It's just that people in these large test groups, if like one has a adverse event, you have to treat it as if the vaccine did it, even though you get enough of a population of people, like you're going to have people with adverse health events no matter what.
Yeah.
But again, they can, in a normal environment, they can statistically tease this stuff out and figure out what's the medicine and what's the sort of population, just random stuff, random health problems that's in their test population. But again, we're not in normal circumstances. There's such a incentive to get this, to be the first and to get this right, that again, yeah, it's like if I'm feeling, even as just like a tertiary observer, like saying, oh God, they have to pause the trial. Like think of all the people that have, all the stakeholders that have, that are breathing down these scientists' neck, giving them pressure that they wouldn't otherwise have for any other circumstance.
Well, for sure. But then I don't know, like this kind of makes you question, had this not been the coronavirus, but had the same amount of effort been put in and I say effort, I mean like all the changes and bypasses happening from a regulatory standpoint, and all the shortcuts that are being taken. If this were to happen for any other known virus, say a virus that was known to us for years now, say the flu, um, would that make you feel any more or less safer? I think the fact that it's a brand new virus, say obviously brand new, but it's a new virus that none of us have any historical. There's no medical treatments out there, and so wouldn't you want to not necessarily take the shortcuts, but probably do an extensive amount of testing in a short period of time, but not necessarily bypass any sort of protocols in place before taking us to market?
I mean, yeah, you want to do it exactly by the book, especially since you're probably, I mean, and ideally you're going to vaccinate 2/3 of the human population, even like a 1 in 100,000 chance when you're vaccinating 5 billion people. That's like still over a million people that would have that adverse reaction. So you got to be, I guess, and again, nobody wants this over. Like everybody wants this to be over. Like nobody wants this to continue. But you have to do it by the book. But I don't know how much faith I have that there isn't pressures that are being like put on people to not, pressure from the stock market, pressures from governments, pressures from contracts that have already been signed with these national health organizations and the companies. But like it's just hard to imagine people not bowing to those pressures.
And that actually kind of leads me to the next part of the conversation I want to ask you. Is like I know that when you and I were talking, I think you practice in the stock market. You've actually participated in this, like, so you have some stocks in there now.
No, I'm out. As I had played around with some stocks, realized that to do it properly, you need to read a ton of and be up on the news. And if you're in a meeting and you don't get the news notification that your company hasn't met their earnings targets, then everybody dumps and you're left holding the bag. And I just couldn't keep that up. So my only exposure to the stock markets is index funds right now, but I used to.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've always been one to participate in the stock market. I've been doing it for a few years now, but typically I've always invested in companies that I've have an interest in the industries that they're participating in, but also in companies that I know more about than not, right? So I follow them from either the news or because I have a good interest in their industry. But the pharmaceutical industry has never been one I participated in ever until now. And you and I were talking about this because it's the rat race for finding that vaccine, and all these companies that are participating, Gilead, Moderna, you name it. It is literally the day traders like golden dream come true, because I'm telling you, it is crazy. A few of my friends early on in March, we knew that it was going to be a rat race as soon as the pandemic hit. And then come April, we were researching on some of the companies that were early on. And it's crazy how swift news can, really inflate some of the valuation for these companies and their stock pricing. And within days, within hours, you can see it like go 10 times the price. And I think I told you the case of Kodak. Kodak was so funny and interesting because everyone was like, who the fuck's Kodak? Who are these guys and why are they participating? Why are they securing themselves a $700 million contract with the US? And after that news broke out, their stock went from like $5-6 US dollars to like 70 something dollars by noon the next day. And it was insane. And I remember a friend of mine, he actually did it. He bought a few stocks. I don't know, not many. I think maybe 10 or something like that. And I think he almost had a heart attack when he saw how much it went up, and he was contemplating on buying more, buying less, and I said, "There's no way that's going to sustain itself. That's just unheard of. Never happens."
Yeah.
And then within the next few days or so, I think it ended up stabilizing or plateauing around like $12 or something like that. But it was crazy. And then Kodak came out to say, "Well, why are you guys surprised? Like, we are actually a chemical company. Sure, we started
Laboratory
making
company.
exactly like sure, yeah, we're everyone knows us for pictures and sharing the Kodak moment, but we're a chemical based company. Like, this is exactly in our realm. No one actually associates us with that." But that whole contract, and even the mind you, that contract, I wasn't following it, but it caught me off surprise when I saw it on the news, and I was not expecting that the very next day it was going to go tenfold on the price. That was just insane, and that's just been the case. Like, all these other companies are coming out, even some of these big organizations that are not necessarily trying to fight for the vaccine, but lock themselves for testing to do just their COVID testing.
Yeah. All of
Their
that's
values are going up as well. It's
Mhm.
crazy. It's crazy because so many companies are investing in these testing companies and testing labs to conduct obviously the COVID test, so that way they can continue as it is. But yeah, I don't know. It's crazy. So it's a day trader's dream come true if you're following the pharmaceutical world. And I was day trading for probably the month of May and June. And then after, I was like, I can't do this anymore, man. This is just too much.
Yeah.
I'm not a guy on New York Wall Street. Like, this isn't for me.
Yeah. I mean, there's going to be a lot of work to be done, in developing the vaccines, testing the vaccines, administering the vaccines. Let's give it like a quick primer on stock evaluations. Is like, so every stock has shares. If you accumulated all of the shares, you would own the company, and the value of all the shares combined is the market cap, and the market cap is supposed to be an approximation of what the company is valued at, is worth, like someone, what another company would pay to buy the business from,
Right.
like, for themselves. Like, there is no fathomable way that securing one contract for Kodak makes them a like, what's the like 5 to 70, so what is that, 100, like 150 time or 15 times
Too
more.
fucking much. Just put it that way.
Yeah, too much. Like, there's no way that the difference between that company being a humongous company and a medium-sized company is one contract. Like, it's just not a thing. And that's the case with all of these companies, is that the stocks bounce around based on the news, but the company is still the company, and it's good to get more business, but and these are big contracts. But if the company was big enough to apply or put a proposal together to get these contracts, like, they're still a big company. The contract in hand doesn't change that. But so that is the market cap. Like, that is what we're approximating, but that's not really what it's truly. There's people speculating that these companies will be the one holding all the chips at the end of the thing, and because it's a winner take all. It's like,
Right.
there may very well be a few vaccines that come out of trial together, but there could be just one, and that company is going to be the company that has the world's, that's going to be able to supply the world, and that's a significant amount of business. So speculating on which company that is obviously like what the day traders are trying to do here. And so it's gotten so divorced from the actual, I don't know, businesses themselves, that yeah, I can't even imagine where to approach that.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, it's crazy. And then you have, like, it goes back to your point earlier. So these pressures that are that are coming around from the market valuation, from shareholders, from people, just normal taxpayers, obviously, they're combining their efforts and sharing the funding for the research and the trials. Do you really feel like the first version 1 of the vaccine is going to be a good enough solution that goes across the globe?
Yeah.
You feel that confident that you're going to be the first one in line to say, yeah, I feel pretty good about getting this one. You might want to wait for version 10 before you feel a bit better injecting that into you. But I don't know. I mean, it just, again, I'm not a pro-vaxxer, I'm not an anti-vaxxer, but the rat race is evident in the stock market. You can see all the people who are trying to slit each other's throats to be the first one to come out of trials with that compound solution that you can share with the world. And at the same time, the shortcuts that are happening out there are also kind of concerning, especially for people who are actually considering getting a vaccine for the first time in their lives. But yeah, it's crazy. It's a crazy time. And I think the longer we stay in quarantine and the more that this carries on, the more interesting it's going to be. The more interesting it's going to play out.
Yeah. Well, that's another thing. If the world can go back to normal life and businesses can go back to normal business, that's trillions of dollars at stake, right? So not only do you have the value of like just not being sick, you have the value of restarting the economy in a way where we're not constantly in threat of lockdown, which has huge consequences.
Yeah,
and not to mention that the amount of money that the government has to borrow and print when they go through one of these lockdowns, they'd much rather give to like AstraZeneca or one of these pharmaceutical companies to give a vaccine. So again, there's just unbelievable incentive. There's also, I also find, what I find interesting too is which country gets it first, or should that be a question in even of itself?
Yeah, we talked about this.
Yeah, and I guess there's a movement and a coalition building of nobody's going to get favored treatment, and I think Canada's signatory on that. But I don't know if that's the best idea, because there's no point in having a country a little bit vaccinated. Like to get herd immunity, you need a significant amount of the country vaccinated. So I'm curious as whether it's the right approach to distribute these vaccines around the globe equally. I'm not advocating that anybody's more important than anybody else, but it's just from a public health thing. It's kind of interesting. I mean, God, in Canada, they're having hard enough time supplying the flu vaccine this year, let alone a new coronavirus vaccine that hasn't been produced before.
Yeah.
Like we do flu vaccines every year, and reason being is that the flu mutates and we get new strains of it every year. But yeah, just to do a new, I don't know anything about the about vaccine production, but I just can't imagine the production scaling that you'd have to do to make billions of doses of something, of anything. To make billions of anything is like a Herculean task. So
I mean, but to your point, and that kind of goes back to what we said in the beginning, where you have these left and right companies that are either supporting the sharing of the solution when it comes out, or people who are looking to be the first one to make their compound proprietary, rather than doing like an open source licensing model of some kind. But to your point, I mean, from a distribution and sharing it across the world, I don't know how else would you do that. I mean, you're going to have this huge uproar of people who I don't even want to think about what it would be like if they put a price tag on this vaccine. So you have those who are less unfortunate that they obviously won't be able to afford it. But to your point, yeah, for a herd immunity, you need to have a significant amount of individuals vaccinated for it to really work. But then, how do you approach it? You're a public health official, or you're one of the lead executive stakeholders that are for a company that's probably going to be one of the first ones to find a vaccine. How do you make that call?
Mm-hmm. Well, you say, how do you put a price on a vaccine? They are doing that. Like, they have to. Like, these companies know that they're already inking contracts on products that don't exist, like
Yep.
for the therapeutics and for the vaccines, with these government health organizations from around the world. And so they are putting price on it. Like, there's no way in a world with a stock market and a capitalist world, and capitalism is my favorite type of economy, by the way. Like, I'm very pro capitalist, but like, there's zero. We don't exist in a world where somebody finds a vaccine and they're just like, you know what, we're gonna open source this. Any company that has the capability to produce this, like, here's no patents required. Here's exactly what you need to do. There's just no way that can happen. Like, it would be legally, like, it's the fiduciary responsibility of the executives to return the shareholders the maximum amount of value that they can. So, like, they can't, even though it would be in the world's interest if somebody did that, there's no way that they can do that.
Yeah.
Which is kind of sad, but we haven't faced a crisis like this before. We only have a few minutes left, but I was gonna ask, like, how are you making money on your trades, or how are you doing?
I was. I jumped out of it because I got sick and tired of day trading. I mean, I wasn't day trading thousands like some people on Wall Street. I was day trading like hundreds, and it was like, even then, I'm naturally not a gambler anyway, so it's not like I enjoy dropping 1,000 on black when I go on to the casino. So day trading for about a month or two was unique. I was strapped to my phone, reading articles every day, every morning. So much so that I was subscribing to Apple News on anything pharmaceutical related. I was getting pinged a new notification say, here's a new study finding this. Here's talks about this company negotiating this. NFL secures a contract with a company to conduct their COVID testing. And it was crazy to see it because normally I'm a pretty conservative investor. I do like some risk, but it's more of like a calculated risk that you kind of understand what comes with it. And I typically don't invest in companies that are, or at least industries that are very volatile. I like to keep the volatility as low as possible, as long as the direction is going upwards.
Mm-hmm.
But in those companies, it was crazy. I'm telling you, Colin, like, I'd look at some companies, like me and my buddies would have a group chat. We'd share with each other information or articles about this happening, or this company's in talks with so and so. And it was crazy. The next, I think we were talking with Verona or Opco. Can't remember which companies we were talking about now, but one of them secured testing with the NFL, and it went up. Like, mind you, the stock was only ever like $3-4 a share, but it went up to about $11-12. And when you think about the percentage gain, that's doubling up. So exactly. So it's someone who puts $1,000 is walking out with 3 times more their amount that they started with that day.
Mm-hmm. Assuming they sell.
Yeah. They want to get. They want to look long term. Then maybe the pharmaceutical industry isn't for them unless they're banking on some of these big players in the game. But yeah, no, I stopped. I couldn't do it anymore. It was irritating to see. I'm trying to think of an example. I think I invested in a company called Verona. VRNA was their stock symbol, and I can't recall what exactly they were in talks for. I think they secured a contract to do testing. I can't recall. But a buddy of mine sent me the article, said, you got to invest in this company. They're in talks to lock up some pretty big contracts. I think the day before I invested, and before the end of business day, the day before, I bought a few shares, and I think it was around $5-6 US. By noon the next day, I think it went up to about $17. But the problem is that afternoon, so from about 12:30 to 4:30 end of business day, I'm telling you, Colin, it like the stock market was like this. It was, the volatility was just, it looked worse than someone's, heart rate or heart attack happening. It was insane. And I had a couple $100 in there, and I saw it go up to 1,000, go up to like less than what I had, go back up to 1,000, all within the span of literally 4 hours of a business day, which is like unheard of, because typically you see it go down. Percentage is very minimal in the investments that I've done.
3-4%.
Yeah, not 20%, not 30%, definitely not like 70% by the end of the day. And you're like, holy fuck, like I can't do this anymore, man.
Yeah.
And I did profit. I think the day ended off at a bit more than what I started. I think it was at $6 when I started, and I think it ended up at $9 or $10. So I made some money, but considering that I could have or should have cashed out when it was at 17, I never did. But it's like, what the, like, honestly, and this is a couple $100. So you can imagine people who are handling profiles of people that want to be high risk, high gain. So you can imagine all the stock companies that are participating, especially now with such minimal transaction fees with some of the competitors. So you're not even banking with RBC or TD, but you use Robinhood, or what's the other one? Wealthsimple. Those guys, I think they don't even charge you for a transaction rate. So when you use them, you can buy, sell as quickly as you get it. And I think they make their business models are built around the professionals that actually give you stock advice. Build a profile around your finances, but it's insane. I don't think I've spent that much time in my life reading news articles on my phone. At least through the month of April, May, June, I think I was reading quite a bit a day. And then I said to myself, you know what? I'm going to have a heart attack by the end of this coronavirus. I might not even get out of quarantine before they have a vaccine. So I might just stop.
So would you like read one of these articles and then immediately make a buy or sell decision? Like as you're reading it, like did you have to like run to your brokerage app and make a trade?
So typically it was within the next day or two, I would probably make the buy. The quickest one that I've never seen react that fast in the market was the Kodak, because I remember reading the article the day before it blew up. And I don't even know how long the article was out for. I think it might have been that same day, maybe one business day before. But I read the article, and it was 4 or 5 o'clock that afternoon, and I opted to not buy it before the end of the business day. I said I'll start off the next day with it, and I ended up not buying it. But a few of my friends ended up purchasing it just before the end of the business day. So I think they bought it just before it hit 4:30. And within the very next day, so business day ends at 4:30. The next day, stock markets opened up 9:30. By 11 o'clock, it was already doubled up within 2 hours. By noon, it was already at like $70 US, starting at like $6. And I remember my one friend who invested the most, he had, I think, 20, 30 shares in it, was like, he almost had to call in sick because he was doing work on his phone, checking the ticker going up. He even canceled a few of his meetings just to follow it through. And I remember him calling me and calling all of our friends and going in the group chat, saying like, look, like I don't know, should I keep it? Like, do you think it's going to keep going up? And I said, I couldn't even tell you anymore. Don't look at me. I'm not even a professional, let alone someone who invests in stocks that frequently. But who the hell knows where the stock's going anymore? Because last night I would have not predicted that it was going to go up to $70 US. I would have thought for sure doubled up at least, not that much within half a business day. And so, I mean, other than the Kodak one, the other stock companies that I was following, typically I'd make the trade within a week or a day or so of reading an article, especially if they were in early talks of securing a contract of some kind. you would read on Monday that, hey, there's conversations between these two companies to supply whatever test kits and whatnot. And you would hear that the test or the contract should be secured and finalized by the end of the week. So you would kind of play it out to see how it goes, because obviously negotiations could go very south or very well. And then normally by Tuesday, Wednesday, or latest, obviously Thursdays, I'd make my decision to see if I should buy a few or not. And then you kind of plan it out or pan out to see how it goes over the next month or two.
Oh, okay,
But,
so it wasn't like hour by hour, minute by minute things you're
no,
making,
yeah,
like
there was a
contemplative
lot of
decisions.
yeah, there was a lot of companies I was following. So that like I'd follow one and see how they were doing. I'd follow another one and see how they were doing. And you would lose track of the small guy, and usually the small guy is the one that's actually increasing in value, because the funny thing is these penny stocks, it could be $1, it could be $1.50 per share. It doesn't really matter what the value of the share is, because if you're investing and it doubles up to $3 by the end of the day or by the end of the week, you're doubling up on whatever you invested in, right? It's 100%. So you're like, oh, but you would never notice that, because obviously it's not like you're gonna see the ticker go flash up, but it's the little guys that typically go like that.
It reminds me of like a resource management game, like SimCity or Civilization or something like that. And you think you've got the game in hand, and then like some other part of the board is going to crap, but you don't notice it.
Yep.
And you're constantly fighting those little battles. Have you heard the phrase "pigs get fat, but hogs get slaughtered"?
I did not.
I think it's a Jim Cramer. I think it's a Jim Cramer thing, but I don't think it originated with him. But the idea is that, like, at a certain point, like when you double your money on something, you gotta sell, because like it's just not, like, you can't expect more from that. But that FOMO, fear of missing out feeling, it's like, oh, if it went up this much, it could go up more. It could go up more. And like the reasonable thing is like, okay, if you truly believe that, then take your half of your position off the table, and then let the other half ride, like, and see it. But again, emotionally, that's not the easiest thing. I didn't even get into these pharmaceutical stocks, but I have been screwing around with Bitcoin. I had Bitcoin that I had in a wallet, in a digital wallet at some point, and I totally left it and went from like 65 to 155.
Not bad.
And I'm like, just like cash out. Just cash it out. Like it's on a 6 months high. Like her again. You just cash out half. But I'm like, no, it's like, it's on a trend. It's trending upwards. It's like, well, it's only trending upwards until it's not. So I'm like, it's not. Again, it's not an easy to game to play emotionally. I don't even know if we're truly, as humans, equipped to do it properly. So
no, I mean, you got to have all the time in the world to stay up to date with the stock market. Look at all the individuals who know the industry well. But unless you're a professional day trader and you know how to, and you know your material well, you know your industries well, I would say it's not for you, especially if you don't like volatility in your stocks. Do not do that. Do not invest in pharmaceuticals right now.
Oh, I mean, but tell that to all the people that are now introduced to this stuff through these free trading apps. And then even worse than that, people can get into leveraged buying, where they they are borrowing money to make to increase their power, and then they can end up, when a stock goes down, being in the whole money. Like,
oh yeah. No, for sure.
Scary stuff. Anyway, I'm glad I'm not. I'm glad I'm just doing
an average citizen.
Yeah. I listened to a whole podcast on how it's really the elite of the elite mutual fund traders can beat the market average, which is what made me switch into index funds. Yeah, so I don't know. It's just tough business. It's tough business to be in. Again, I get so divorced from reality that I don't know, with all the speculation, that I don't know how you even come to think about it properly. So
yeah, that's for sure.
all right, cool, man. Well, let's talk again on another topic next week or so, and but for now, I guess that's all there is.
That's all there is. Quarantine, vaccine solution one day in the future, and then we'll see who the big players are that are coming on top.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, I guess we should put the like disclaimer that this is not stock advice. Do not like if there's anything. Don't. Yeah.
No.
I hope nobody comes across this and is like, it's like, oh, these guys have the inside goods. I hope that cannot come across. It's not stock advice. Don't make any trade decisions based on what we've talked about here today.
Please don't. No.
Anyway, have a good one.
All right. For sure.
Thank you for listening to the Unobstructed podcast. Links to the stories we talked about can be found at unobstructedpodcast.com. If you are not subscribed, please consider subscribing. If you are a regular listener, a 5-star review would help us find new listeners. Until next time, keep breaking boundaries.